Um, so what have you been up to?
That's
It's
such
such
a,
a loaded question.
it
Oh,
is such a
because I
loaded
feel like
question.
when you and I talk about that, it's never like simple. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
always like,
It's always so complex.
yeah,
It's beautifully complex because calibrations are happening just,
yeah, yeah.
billions of times per second.
Mhm. Yeah.
So keeping up with that flow and enjoying it and grounding more into my own equilibrium as my soul star chakra has been opening wide. I mean, it's been open for a long time, but I feel like I'm grounding into living more from that space. So there's been a depersonalization that's happening, which is really quite magnificent because it allows me to see so much more clearly and do my work with more clarity and not have not personalize any of it in any way. So it's a really beautiful, powerful space to occupy. So I've just been letting that calibration happen naturally.
What do you mean when you say not personalize it?
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a very oracular space of observation and
Mm,
engagement too. Engaging from that space
right. So
is
like, and so not taking what you observe on, but just observing it.
yeah. So I had a really beautiful visual the other day because I was in a crowd. I was at the Conscious Media Festival, and I was seeing how I was existing in my universe, and everybody else was existing in their universe, and I was just in this open field of pristine clarity, and I was listening to all the stories, and I was taking everything in, and I was experiencing everyone fully and receiving the experience fully, but I wasn't. Getting entangled at all. I was able to maintain my own space and stay really clear. So I was still able to have the full lucid experience of it, but there was no kind of crossover, I suppose. So there was no internalization.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was just fully showing up for the moment and channeling myself uh, or whatever was wanting to come through in those moments. And
Right.
yeah, it was really beautiful. It's just like in the world, not of the world. That's the best way.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the best way that I could describe it accurately. But it's been a really gorgeous space to occupy. It feels like sovereignty to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
That's so funny that you mentioned that too, because sovereignty and enlightenment have been like, and individuation have been like themes that are coming up in my life right now. And they're always sort of showing themselves. And I think, like, as I'm sure you already know, like I would suppose the simplest way to describe that is like, it's like the freedom that we're all actually seeking. You know what I mean? That's how I view sovereignty, enlightenment, individuation. It's like the recognition, the remembering that we are like already free through the releasing and shedding of all the like attachments and everything outside of ourselves that we're like grasping for and clinging to, right? And the recognition that it's all like it's here
Mm-hmm.
already, it's here, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so that those themes have been coming up big time in my life right now, just like, self trust. I think, self trust, like faith in essence,
Mm.
is really like, to me, the gateway to that space where we can begin to be, truly free, right? That's my experience. So mine has been a practice of like trust and faith
Mm.
and even grace as well. Um, but yeah, like trust and faith, just yeah, big themes as being the sort of stepping stones that allow me to move into that space of sovereignty that you speak of. It's so nice too. Like it's really challenging because it can be kind of, I think it can be kind of daunting initially to embrace that. And it's so interesting because we say we want to be free, but then when it comes time to like be courageous because you have to be, and you can't be lazy either, right? It does take like a certain power to break free of and transcend dogma, right? And norms, and yeah, it's so it's like, but a lot of people are like, I don't want to do that work, right? Or I don't want to go. This is easy. This is familiar. This is comfortable. This is how I've been doing things, right? Whereas I feel like people like you and I will sometimes, almost to a fault in certain situations, we're just like, let's go.
Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's so
Yeah.
very true.
Mm-hmm.
I was reflecting on that too, finding that balance between let's go and let's go in an incredibly level-headed, balanced way.
Yeah.
So there's been an element of just being deeply attuned to the present moment. So deep attention. That's been my greatest practice recently. Just deep attention. But yeah, I mean, I'm making some moves. I'm ready to make some moves. I'm ready to make some moves with some people.
Yeah. Do you notice that too? I'm really tuned into this energy of um collaboration right now in the universe. Like community and collaboration are just like so big right now. Lots of people, lots of groups rising up, lots of people coming together, lots of people collaborating, lots of movement happening, lots of activism happening, lots of people like coming into their power together. Yeah.
I was having a conversation with my friend Kevin last week, and he mentioned sovereign unity. And I think that's an exquisite way to describe it, because that's what it is. And for me, it feels like being so deeply attuned to, and I would dare to venture into the range of being turned on by my own channel. So getting a sense of, feeling a sense of ecstasy or exhilaration by tuning into my own vision and my own creative pathway, and navigating that and being so grounded and centered in that, and then bringing forth what it is that I'm called to create, and being in a group of other people who are doing the same thing. So everybody being really grounded in their sovereignty, maintaining their sense of individuality, and then also coming together as a group to add in the physical dimension, whatever our creations are. And making stuff happen. But yeah, that feels really alive for me right now. And I'm also I'm very sensitive to who's grounded into those spaces and places within themselves and who is not. And a lot of that has to do with self-love and self-ownership and self-trust, like you were talking about, and being able to stay focused. Yeah, in that way, because they're so attuned to self.
How do you stay focused? Because I noticed that theme coming up for me as well, of like this theme of like, well, as you're moving into that space, there's a recognition that like certain externally there's certain, say, relationships or environments or situations or patterns that like don't align, and so how do you stay in the practice of honoring the recognition of that and staying in alignment?
Yeah, that's a beautiful. So the way that has been showing up for me is I've been practicing celebration. So I'm celebrating my vision. I'm celebrating living in my vision. I'm celebrating my creations, myself, my surroundings, the people that come to mind. And that has been one of my main focuses. And staying deeply present too, so I can hear my inspiration as it arises and create from that space of inspiration. And so when I link up with people, this is so dynamic. Let's just go into it. When I link up with people, who are not attuned, so that don't currently have the capacity to celebrate themselves and others. It becomes very clear to me. And so I suppose the RX for that is a depth of self-love. So I can either hold someone in that space and provide a container for them to explore that if they're willing, and if they're not ready, I just release them. And I have not been spending any time on entertaining energies that are not grounded in that space, because I realize how valuable my time and energy are, and how much of my time and energy I was giving away before to people who weren't already grounded into that, because I am, and I have a clear vision, and I'm moving in that direction, and I have a desire to do that with other people. And if they're ready, they're ready. If they're not, they're not, and that's okay. But so then making the choice for myself and my vision around what I need to do to best nurture and cultivate that. And then there's also a recognition too that when those people do show up in my life, they are tests for me to one, see how devoted I am to my vision and my truth, and two, to see where I have created obstacles in my own mind and where I can move more deeply into self-love, because it's all one field of consciousness. So they're reflecting me in some degree too. So I also look at them as an opportunity for deeper self-awareness and integration within myself, and deeper layers of commitment to myself.
Right. So I noticed, so in relation to that, I noticed that sometimes there are relationships or situations that I rationalize putting myself into because I think there's something graceful or righteous about continuing to be there. Like, so it's sort of like that relationship that you maybe stay in too long because you're like, deep down, this is a good person, or they mean well, or they haven't necessarily done anything wrong, but you know that it feels heavy and something feels off. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to make a decision between, like, am I still growing in this, and am I still meant to be here, or is it time to, like, move on, Yeah.
So in the context of that person is still reflecting some part of your story. So the underlying question, because I look at things in terms of energy.
Yeah.
The question is, are you ready to let go of that part of your story?
Ah, wow.
And so sometimes you can actually take a break from that person and go within and shift your story and shift into a new dimension of your own being. And then you
come back.
and come back to that person, or come back to that.
I've done that before, actually. And thank you for that. Because there have been periods where I haven't seen people for, like, weeks or months or even like a full year sometimes. And then you come back, and it's interesting to see how those attachments have gone and how the sort of dynamic is far different. And I'd even go so far as to say, when we realigned, we were two stubborn individuals, because all those hooks and attachments and stories and patterns and all of that, they're just like gone, because we had been away for so long that in that time we were able to, like, develop that sovereignty in the context of that relationship.
Yeah. And a clear way for me to distinguish too is my intention in relationship at this point in my life is to celebrate people and to emphasize their strengths and to hold them in their moments of weakness. But this theme of just really enhancing the beauty and the strength that I'm seeing in people and their creativity as well. That feels really alive and important. So positive reinforcement. And so I can distinguish whether or not somebody's able to celebrate me. And if somebody's not in a space where they're able to celebrate me, I recognize that that's because they're not in a space where they're able to celebrate themselves. And that's when I know I just need some space. And so I've also been looking at in relationships, there's some people who I can be around often, and there's some people where we just link up, in increments, times, and that's okay. That's beautiful to me. And recognizing when we need to take those spaces and honor those spaces and then come back together. And those spaces really serve, because when we come back together, it's always more beautiful and expansive. And so there's that too. So not needing anything to be particularly final, unless you link back up with someone and they just haven't changed at all.
Yeah, and that final piece is interesting because I think to know me is to know that sometimes, and probably more so in a previous life than say currently, I had this tendency. I had a flair for the dramatic, obviously, right?
You Scorpio, so, I love you. Yeah. I love you so much.
So it was like I'm gonna cut you out. You know what I mean? And I was in the habit of like the cut and run, as I call it, and I just realized I was like, this is not healthy. Like when shit gets real, like no, you don't just like cut and run, and from that, I've learned to move even deeper into relationships as a result, and I've learned so much about myself, and it's been fun for sure. But yeah, I even noticed that sometimes that reactive tendency will arise in me. Like someone will do something, and I think, you know what? I'm done with this person. I'm done, and then like, of course, I'm like, okay, like sleep it off, and then of course the next day I'm like, okay, bring on the confrontation, right? Because I think confronting is so important, and it's something that I don't evade, and so I move into it, and by the end of that interaction, there's it's so interesting to go from, you know what, I'm done with them, to like, okay, I can see the beauty in this person, in this situation, the message in the mess, the lesson. It's so interesting, and I almost like approach it now, like I almost view it comically these days. I'm like, I know myself, I know how I operate, I know that sometimes I can be reactive, but the beauty is the separation between like that sort of thought and that like reaction. So I'm able to like view it and like be aware of it, as opposed to back when it was like I was pissed and I just went off. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Can I invite some deeper layers?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. So one, and I've recognized this because I've done the same thing as well, and I've just simply observed it. And by being in a relationship with Scorpios, which I love you. You're my polar opposites. There's the most growth and potential in that container, in my experience. And I love you guys. You're one of my best friends, so obviously. So the cutting off, it's a cutting off of parts of yourself where you're seeing those aspects, those dimensions of your own being reflected in another individual, and it can feel intense. And instead of claiming that, or just simply recognizing it from a more detached observer perspective, it becomes an assault on your sense of value. And so then there's that tendency to cut off because it's being internalized to mean something about your worth. And so there's a great capacity for growth there if you can then take yourself out of the situation and get really raw and honest about, okay, is that thing, and you can just write on a piece of paper the thing that you don't like about that person. Can you identify where that exists within you? And then just celebrate it, just embrace it, and not make it so, not make it bad or wrong, but just go, okay, I can acknowledge that I do that, and I'll celebrate it. And then once that aspect is integrated, it doesn't really need to show up in the outside hologram anymore. Otherwise, we cut it off. We cut that part of ourself off, thinking that it's the other person, but we haven't resolved it within ourselves, and so it keeps showing up over and over again. And the resolution is self-love. It's just to shamelessly celebrate that part of yourself, and That's all.
Yeah, I saw that this weekend too. It was so funny because um, I have a friend, soul brother, who like he's a reflector, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so I saw myself. Oh God, it was so amazing to see myself, and I was like, wow, like I'm so beautiful and so powerful and so full of light. Like just I saw myself in a way that I hadn't seen myself in such a long time, and it was so interesting because as we're sort of eye gazing for like these extended periods of time, I said to him, I'm getting this like there's a voice from in here and it's saying I love you and I missed you. And it was just so interesting because he's like, I'm reflecting you back to yourself, right? So he's like, yes, thank you,
Yeah.
And it was just so amazing. But and then sort of later on in the weekend, I was met with these scenarios where I encountered challenges. I was met with people who maybe behaved in a way that like really triggered me, or was in situations that I was I felt kind of triggered by. It's like, oh, this is like I don't need to be here and I don't need to go there again, and I don't know why they're still doing that. Or there was a lot of definitely there was quite a bit of judgment there. And I remember lying in bed last night, and as I'm just like unloading, it's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done with these people and the situations and blah 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 blah. And then I paused after I got it all out. I said, and you know what's funny? I said, everything that I'm angry about is really a reflection of my anger towards myself. You know what I mean? And I got that right away. I was like, I'm not mad at them. I'm mad at me.
Yeah.
And I got that, almost instantly. Sometimes I feel like I just need to vent and unload. And then at that point, once I've released all of that, like they, them, I'm mad, I'm done, they're cut. I'm never going there again. I'm never doing that again. Whew. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now that that's clear, what would my higher self do? Oh, that's right. It's you.
I love bringing in the aspect of the humor, though, like the comic nature of it all. Like, it just because when I see it, I just see these are all avatars of my own mind. They're literal reflections, and I've viscerally experienced this before. And I'm like, oh, well, that's that part of my mind, and there's this part of my mind, and and the more I master my own mind, the more the people that show up in my reality are loving masters.
Yeah. And it's funny too to be able to embrace the dramatic side of me with a sense of humor. Like I can honor it, I can allow it. There's a place for it. It's awesome. I love it. It does not dominate my experience the way it used to, though, right? Because I used to, it was all drama all the time. You know what I mean? Now it's like, yeah, you can come out and play. That's cool, And then, once that's done, then it's sort of, you get those other aspects of myself, which is really cool. But I love that I'm now able to give myself permission. And I think this is so important for all of us, is to give ourselves permission to express that in a way that is safe and um, healthy. Yeah. I don't think it's about people sometimes say I've got to kill that part of myself. It's got to die, and I'm like, probably not. I don't think that's going to happen, but you can try. It's probably going to suck.
Well, yeah, I think the way that I've experienced that alchemically is that it just it changes. It just transforms. It literally it's being brought to. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just transforms. So it just transforms into a different element, a different expression, a different quality.
Yeah.
So I almost see it dissolving and then rising. in
Mm-hmm.
another way. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
constant dissolving and becoming, which is
Mm-hmm.
really, the way I'm seeing it right now is really beautiful. I wish I could draw like
Yeah.
Alex Gray can draw.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh.
Those
Um,
images, they're
it's just
amazing.
like it's dissolving and it's becoming, and this is happening in every single moment. It's just
Yeah.
the transience of it is dependent on the story that we're telling from moment
Mm-hmm.
to moment, which is the beauty of our capacity to create. And I know for me, I've gotten a lot more intentional about when I wake up in the morning. The first thing that I do is what do I want the story of my day to be today?
Oh, wow.
Just
I
like
love that. Yeah.
inspiration and wonder and creation and forward momentum and all the things that I want to experience in that day, and I course that energy through my body and I breathe it in, and like all the feelings that I want to feel. I want to feel that sense of ecstasy has been big lately, just in like the creative ecstasy that comes from my solar plexus up into my heart, where I just
Mm-hmm.
feel inspired to move and to act and to birth things in the physical dimension. And so I breathe those things in, and always, and then I'll go take a shower and I'm in it, because I have
Mm-hmm.
clearly, powerfully set that energy for my day, and it's been really helpful. Um,
I noticed resistance in my body when you said that, and it brought up this question of, so like, first I was like, oh my God, that's so exciting. That sounds amazing. And then immediately after, I felt I felt like a contraction, because I think that when you're in a situation that does not reflect the story that you want to create, it can sometimes feel challenging to
mm,
imagine um, your ideal sort of day, right?
mm-hmm.
That's possible because you
Wow.
wake up and you're still in the same dirty clothes you were wearing yesterday, so to speak.
I love that analogy.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good. So a way to overwrite the subconscious instantly is, if even if you can't feel it, even if you can't see it in that moment, if you powerfully command it. So when you command energy, you can penetrate to the layer of the subconscious. So even if through the spoken word, if you write down, I want to experience this today, and you don't,
Mm,
so you just you say it out loud, you command it, and you'll notice that the energy shifts because of the command that you've
gotcha.
been given. That's a really easy, straightforward way to do it. And
Right.
you decide, you make a decision, and obviously creation supports that decision powerfully. I mean, that's our power as creators, is to, I mean, that's really the greatest power that we have, is the power of choice, but we've got to exercise it.
Mm, yeah.
And it's,
Where do you,
oh yeah.
sorry, I was gonna ask, like, where do you see us, in your experience, in your observation, where are we most commonly not in the practice of honoring our freedom of choice?
Giving our power away to other places and spaces and time. So not being fully present. So anytime we're not fully present in some capacity, we're giving our power away, because
Mm,
we're divided. Um, so there's that element. And then also giving it away to the universe, or some more expanded power, or waiting on somebody else to decide and choose for us, instead of just going for what it is that
I've
we
seen
actually
that a
want.
lot too. I remember there's a friend I have, and I will see her sometimes spinning her tires. There's this, you can see this sort of suffering and this spinning and this spiraling, and
Mhm.
and I'll hear her say, well, I'm just going to keep praying and God's going to take care of it. And prayer, powerful. Asking,
Mhm.
powerful. What I see though, where I see a problem, is when we think that we're just to sit and pray, and that everything that we want is just going to come to us. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
What I've recognized in my experience is that there is a motion that also needs to happen.
Mm.
You sort of got to meet it halfway, right? So I see this happening with her, and I go, yeah, no, that's great. Like, yeah, you're on the right track. You're just missing a few steps, you know.
Well, there's the infinity symbol. It's the keeping the giving and the receiving
Mm.
channel fluid
Mm-hmm.
and open.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a point of adeptness where you can create from your consciousness. Oh, but you know, there's a whole completely different conversation that I'm not going to introduce
Right.
to the
Yeah, I got it.
yeah, thank you. But there is that keeping the infinity spiral open. And so we're constantly giving through the expression of our beingness, and we're receiving and allowing that energy to flow back to us. So there's powerfully commanding, and closing the gap is a lot more simple than we think. It's just getting ultra clear on what it is that we want to be. Who do we want to be? Who is that person? What does that person look like? What are they doing? What service are they providing in the world? How do they show up? And then being that in this moment, regardless of whether the external reality looks like that or not, because when we powerfully embody that energy in the moment, we start living as that person, as the husband, as the wife, as the leader, as our higher self, our expanded self, however we choose to look at that, embody that, then our reality, that gap closes, and before you know it, all this out here changes.
It's just like I get it. You close the gap so it can flow in.
Yeah, so that you can ground it actually into the physical dimension. Because if we're just in the space of praying, and so the power of a command versus is because there's an element. I mean, it's power. It's an element of grounding that energy into the present moment, and then living in it. You know. Powerfully being that energy. So when we decide at the beginning of the day that today my day is going to be filled with these frequencies, this energy, we're prepping ourselves to be.
But then you have to move toward it even.
Well, once you're in the frequency has this uncanny ability to guide you.
Right.
Because the frequency will show us intuitively, okay, well, what happens at this frequency? You know, what do I do at this frequency? Oh, this is what I do. And
that's the thing I see is that the download happens, and then people will be, like, fear gets in the way, and so there's this waiting. But it's like you have to move. Like when you're called, when you're pulled, you've got to move with it. And I think sometimes that's the missing piece, right? People are just like, if I stay here on my island, it'll come to me. But it's like, well, no, you're being called to it. You know?
Yes. Yes. You just hit the nail on the head. Movement. That's the thing that gets in the way is waiting. That's
I always say, put your ass where your heart is, you know? Right? So you're going, okay, this is what I see, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to experience. You sort of like throw it out there, right? And then you're like, okay, you've got to move your ass to that place now, you know? It's out there, but you've got to get off your butt and move toward it, right? So
I even think of it as preparatory action. So once I'm clear and I've decided what I want, I start taking preparatory action as though that thing is landing on my doorstep.
I like that.
This afternoon. Like, oh, this opportunity is going to show up. This person's going to show up. I'm going to meet my husband. How am I?
Right. Yeah.
And am I ready to embark on this mission? And am I prepared?
Right.
Via action. And so I lead myself into that reality via preparatory action. That's the way that helps me to
That's so powerful too. I saw that in one of the simplest forms. I was watching Queer Eye on Netflix, and they made over this guy and like his home and stuff. They gave him this beautiful makeover. They instilled him with confidence and self-esteem. Like, it was just this beautiful thing. Almost brought me to tears. And so when they were revamping his home, they replaced his old recliner with 2 new recliners. And I thought, oh my God, that's so brilliant. Now, the reason they had put in 2 recliners side by side is because they were saying, like, this one's for you, and this one's for the woman who's going to come into your life. You know what I mean? And I thought, yes, that's so awesome. Like, I love that those messages, right, and this, and sort of in the simplest, most relatable way, are being put forth in mainstream media like this. It was so exciting. I was like, yes, that's beautiful, because that's exactly it. What did you say? Preparatory
action.
And I think that's beautiful. And Oprah's talked about that a number of times. You know, luck is when preparation meets the opportunity. So we go, oh, those people are just lucky. It's like, no, they're not lucky. They knew what they wanted, and they embodied that. They prepared. They behaved as if, like, oh, it's coming. I better shower, get dressed, you know, put on my nice outfit and get ready, because, you know, it's coming to the door.
So this is where some just feeling in the energy where a lot of people tend to get stuck, is that they ask for the thing, and then they
go back to bed.
Well, they go back to sleep, and they're envisioning it, and they're envisioning the person, or they're envisioning the opportunity, and they're still going about business as usual. So they're still doing the same things that they were doing before they asked for the thing, instead of becoming the person that they need to be to match what it is that they're actually calling in. So
good.
And there's because well, I'm just going to keep being, and I've asked for it, and I've put it out there. And so there'll either be a continuing to be in the same way, or a waiting for the thing to come. But we've got to be the person that, you know, who am I going to be when all of this materializes?
So let me ask you this. This is a good segue, because I really wanted to get onto this topic specifically. So commonly, people are, generally speaking, they're like, I want to meet the love of my life, or I want more clients. I want more money, right? I want my business to thrive so I can use that money to do what I want, to create the life in the world that I want. How does this apply to livelihood and romantic partnership?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can tell you what I'm doing.
Exactly. I would love to hear that, because I know you're always sort of working your magic.
I have a very clear image in my mind of the man that I want to be with, and the mission that we will embark upon, and how we will sustain our sovereignty in that container, but how we will show up to one another powerfully to bring that vision forward into the collective. And so I just be me. Beauty is a huge thing for me. So self-care, nourishment, feeling beautiful, feeling, you know, in the ways that work for me on the relationship front. So who would I be if that love of my life were here now? So most people wait till they get the partner to like start embodying that energy. So me, it's what would I do if this person were literally in my life right now? How much more inspired would I be to be my best self? And so on the relationship front, being like I would be if I were in a relationship. And then on the client front, I'm in that creation mode. I'm like, okay, so if somebody shows up tomorrow, what am I leading them into? What program are we going to embark upon? What kind of energy activation are we going to do? What are the focal points for this? And having all of that just in order, and feeling really exhilarated about how I can help them enhance their life. And knowing beyond the shadow of a doubt that when they come to me, they will get results from the work that we do together. And so it's looking, there's a confidence around creating something in your business, whatever that looks like for you. Everybody's is going to look completely different because of who we are. But when somebody shows up to me, do I have the confidence that I can get them profound results, that I can shift them from where they are now to where they want to be in their life experience, and staying grounded in that and creating in alignment with that. So what do I know gets results, because it has got me results and it has gotten my clients results, and really grounding into the frequency of those things and continuing to expand upon that. And that's where creation feels fun for me, because I have like a baseline, you know, this is what gets results, you know, and I know because I've done it over and over and over again. And then it's like, okay, well now let's play with some different ways to get even bigger results. So working with abundance and quantity, and creating quantum leaps. So wherever anybody is in their life, I can help guide them from that point to just a completely new reality altogether. So taking those quantum, and that's where I really come alive, because I know wherever somebody is, we can go.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to take this a bit further. So like, even like very practically speaking, like, how are you living and where are you putting yourself so that you align with the man, the money, the clients, the opportunities? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, in my life, I take care of always myself, my clients, my creations, my business are my number one priority. Channeling, creating sacred space to meditate and receive visions and do all of that in my own space. And then going out to events, going to places where I am invited, where I know there's going to be beautiful beings who are operating on a similar wavelength as I am, so that we can grow and expand together. And being in that container around people who are also expanding rapidly. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than that in this world. In my experience, aside from like that union in the container of relationship, but being around other people who are creating and exploring in the same or similar dimensions as you are is so amplifying. And so I look at every opportunity I can to go into those spaces that feel aligned to me. So it's not just taking any opportunity. It's where I know, I feel it out, I sense it out. I can get, a general feel for, is this going to be an amplifying experience? And then I say yes to those experiences. And I'm discerning about the ones that aren't. So even if it's just, if it sounds like it might be, but the energy around it doesn't feel totally aligned, then I'm getting a lot better at saying no to those things as well. And being able to discern the difference.
Between that and fear?
Well, I wouldn't say fear, because I don't think at this point I don't feel like I experience. I sometimes I feel nervous when I'm stretching. But I don't feel like I experience
just
fear.
Sort of nervousness. Yeah.
I just know like by virtue of the events that are going to be happening in the context of something like a festival or
because I feel like in the past and maybe there are people who like resonate with this. In the past, I've noticed there are certain situations where I might mistake my anxiety, like that anxiousness or nervousness, for like a sign that I'm not supposed to do it, or that I should stay in bed, stay home, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you'll know, like, so the way that I gauge that is, will this be good for me?
That's it. I love the simplicity of that. Like as soon as I could feel, like, as you said that, I just felt, it was almost as if it just like sliced through everything, because that's so simple and so powerful. Will this be good for me? Yeah. Wow.
And discerning in situations where you've gone or you've tried different. So I'm about trying things out too. So if something new presents itself and it seems like it might be in alignment, I'm open to trying it. And if I feel like it's good for me, I'll continue to engage. And if I don't feel like it's good to me, or if I feel like I've received all I can receive from a certain experience, I'll just move on to something else. Because there's always expansive. You find that stuff all over the world.
Yeah. Will this be good for me? Beautiful question. That is powerful. That's powerful. I can think of so many situations where like I could have used that question, or will use that question moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and even sometimes, and sometimes it will feel like a stretch. Sometimes we will have to take a leap to do the thing that's actually good for us. But you'll be able to discern, like, is this healthy? Is this healthy or is this not healthy? And really getting clear around that,
Yeah. So what are you currently in practice of to hone that like intuition that you're talking about? Because when you say you'll know, I know what you're talking about. I think many of us do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you hone that like and tune that knowing,
Mm-hmm.
that intuition? What practices are you
One of
engaged in?
my one of my best practices is I pay attention.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
I pay attention to everything. I trust myself. I trust my body. I keep my channel clear. So health is really primary for me. Whatever I need to do to keep myself clear and healthy and balanced and on my own
Mm,
wavelength is what I'll
yeah.
do. And I think that those practices look totally different for all of us. So I find that frequency of clarity. My number one personal value for me to stay in alignment is clarity.
Mm,
So, and even beyond clarity is lucidity. So I'm always
mm,
looking for that lucidity. And so I keep my health in check and balanced with movement and with what I'm consuming and the information I'm consuming. And then I show up to life and I pay deep attention to what is happening in the moment that I am in. I pay attention to the cues of my body, to my intuition. If I'm engaging with someone, I'm giving them my full presence and devotion and attention. I try to immerse myself as deeply as possible
wow.
in the moment.
Mm,
And it's interesting because we would think that, well, the more I pay attention to what's happening in the moment, the deeper I see into reality. And I know what that thread, that frequency feels like for me, because it's a degree of clarity that's almost, it's otherworldly in nature. And I was thinking about this a while ago because I was like, how do I find my thread? Um, and for me, it's a very visionary space. And so it's like, if you've ever experienced plant medicine of any kind, where you're able to almost peer into the different dimensions of reality because you're so attuned, you're so awake, you're so alive, you're so aware of what's going on, your sense perceptions are open, that you're able to see more deeply into the nature of reality itself because you're so zoomed in to the present moment, whatever that may be. Um, and so, I mean, I have meditative practices I use for that.
mhm,
Vipassana
mhm,
meditation is huge for me, which is where I quiet my mind completely. So silence, absolute silence. And I course the energy through my body from head to toe. And I have no thought happening, but I'm feeling my breath moving through my body, which attunes me to subtle energies. So then I can start to feel myself. I feel what's going on in my body. I feel what it's like to relax and open my heart. I feel what it's like to breathe my vision through my third eye. I feel what's going, you start to feel yourself. And so the more we start to feel ourselves in the subtle energy that's moving through our own body, what tension feels like, what complete relaxation feels like, what anxiety feels like, what heart opening feels like, the more we can sense it clearly when we go out into the world. Like, oh, I know what that feels like because I know what that feels like inside of me. So when we go into a situation, maybe with another person or in another environment, it's so easy to identify those things. So knowing, I mean, it's a practice of
mhm,
first knowing thyself,
mhm.
knowing, feeling thyself, and becoming deeply attuned to the cues of our own nature and our own body and our own surroundings, trusting them explicitly. And as
Yeah.
I encourage this with my clients, especially when we're working on opening up their psychic capacity, trust yourself always in every moment, even
Mhm.
if it feels completely left of center, if it if it seems
Yeah,
completely
yeah, and I
elusive.
get this. We were just talking. We've sort of come full circle here because at the beginning we were talking about faith and trust and sovereignty and enlightenment and all of that. And I think, um, yeah, we like you have to trust to reach that point, right?
Hmm.
Where you're so tuned in that like you know what needs to happen next and the answers just move, like the answers come to you, they download,
Hmm.
you get them, and you just move in the direction you need to. But that building of trust, it's like, it's like any relationship, as you said, you have to develop it, right? You have to develop
Yeah.
a relationship of trust to
Yep.
that that ability.
No matter what's coming up Trust it. Trust it. Trust your intuition. Trust
Yeah.
your visions.
Because the brain logic will sometimes go, but that doesn't make sense, right? Because logic hasn't had a chance to like put it all together and create a linear sort of path, because that's what we've been conditioned to see, how we've been conditioned to see things. It's like it has to be linear, it has to fit into everything we've been fed. But intuition doesn't fit into everything we've been fed, because it's not even of this. It's like it's bigger than that. It's bigger than this. Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
this is why people miss, or we can miss, the highest dimensional timelines that are available to us, because we get the vision, we get the insight, we get the download, and then we start to interpret it through the filter of our logic. Now, I think there's beauty about looking at, okay, I've received the vision. Now, how do I enact this in a balanced way? But most of the time people will, because it's so far-fetched sometimes, or it's so in the world, not of the world. It's so counterintuitive to what the world maybe is presenting, or the way things have always been done. This is how brilliant people make an impact in the world, is because they were willing to believe in those insights that came through when nobody else did, or when maybe even whole groups of people weren't giving them, positive reinforcement or whatever it was. They trusted themselves and they channeled their vision through into the physical dimension. And that is how their greatness was born. And so whatever comes up, trust, trust, trust over and over and over again until it becomes a knowing. That's how knowing gets solidified. By practicing trust.
Wow.
And then knowing, so this is interesting. This is where the energy is taking me right now. The unknown is not really so much of a mystery. The difference between the known and the unknown is the known is what we define and what we bring into this dimension. And the unknown is just the infinite field of possibility and potential that we have not defined yet. We have not given definition to. And so what is known is what is being created. So whatever you consciously select for yourself becomes your knowing.
Whatever you consciously select for yourself becomes your knowing.
And then you can relax in that and just allow it to unfold. I know because I have decided, and I am actively moving in the direction of that which I have called for.
See, and that right there, that really hit home for me. I know because I have decided. Because what I can put forth transparently about myself is that I've very frequently in my life been in the habit of honoring and trusting my intuition. But I've also encountered periods where, because I've felt so burned or jaded, that I stop trusting and begin looking outside of myself for answers, and creating this indecisive. It creates this like, I don't trust myself, therefore I'm indecisive because I'm hearing everybody else and not listening to myself. And it just creates this sort of crazy relationship to myself and to the people around me, and to my relationship to like this human experience. And that can be really frustrating. And so I've actually more recently been in the practice of redeveloping that like amazing relationship I had to my intuition, and that inner knowing. And so what you just said really resonated with me. Like deciding, what was it you said? Deciding and knowing.
I know because I have decided.
I know because I have decided. Yeah.
And one of the major pitfalls in the creation process is that people start to buy into other people's stories instead of selectivating. I like that word.
I like that word too. I'm like, that sounds like
select and activate.
Yeah. Ooh,
instead of
I like that.
selecting and activating or cultivating their own vision. And so there's a space with our own mastery and bringing our own vision forward. And this is so important because this is all data, and everybody is projecting their own story into the hologram. So the question becomes, am I going to accept this person's story Or am I going to consciously create my own story and not accept any data that is contrary to the story and the vision that I am cultivating? And that's how you rule out indecision, because all of those other elements, they're beautiful if we don't allow them to become a distraction. Most people allow them to become such a huge distraction that they miss bringing their own vision forward.
And this is so powerful too. Like you're speaking to me right now for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting at a table in a restaurant over the weekend, and this group of us, we had this powerful sex talk, and it was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I remember at the end, we had all sort of stuck around, and we were talking life and business and that sort of thing. And one of the gentlemen who stuck around, there was like a little group of us, and he pipes up and he's asking me about what I'm working on and stuff. And then all of a sudden he starts telling me like how I've got to do things, and he's sort of and I could appreciate in that moment like his passion, his insight, the things that he knew. I thought this is really cool. And at the same time I'm sitting there and I'm going, but this doesn't resonate with me. It feels like it's of the old paradigm, this way of conducting business, and this idea that like in a way I have to be inauthentic to appeal to the masses or something. You know what I mean? This idea that there needs to be sort of this like veil for people to want to like buy into me. And that's sort of, to me, that's sort of like, I understand it, but at the same time, I think it's the old way, very much so. And so what was really cool was that, and I thank God for this like tool that I use. I thought to myself, okay, he has given me his prescription glasses. I have put them on. I am now seeing the world through his prescription. And when we're done, I'm going to take them off and I'm going to give them back to him. And I'm going to continue to see the world through my eyes, aware of what he might have shared with me. I'll always remember what his prescription looked like. That's great, right? But it's not mine, right? Yeah. Because in my reality, trusting this and living and conducting business and, in an authentic, transparent way is like, that's my truth, and I'm always developing that as well. Like there's things that people don't know about me yet, or aspects of myself that people don't see, sometimes you'll see it, but like I have a shadow side too, and he's a diva and he swears and he's dramatic and he's, you know what I mean? And
I've seen your shadow.
Yeah, and I know you have. Yeah.
I love your shadow.
No, and so do I. I think it's so awesome. And like, you catch like glimpses of it. People catch glimpses of it for sure. But it's like, I will not, no matter who says what, no matter what I'm sold, I refuse to believe that I cannot and will not be successful unless I adhere to the previous paradigm. I am aware that there are people that I've been connecting with and whose content I've been viewing and engaging with who understand and are living and thriving in the new paradigm. And so it just gives me so much hope. I'm like, no, you guys don't have to listen to those 7 or 10 or 12 steps to like, marketing your business and getting rich quick and all that stuff that's out there. It's just like, no, what is your heart saying? What is your spirit saying? What is your soul telling you? Like, move in the direction of that guidance, of that pull, Yeah.
You know what will get you there? Is belief in your own self and your own vision. This is where empowerment is so, it's the universal part the seas. For the man or woman who thoroughly believes in themselves and the direction that they're moving in, and it's that simple.
So this is so interesting too, because one of the things that comes up for me, for example, and I'm still playing around with this, but I was feeling called to be in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's happened there is like there's these stories where it's like I want to go, but there's laws, like I can't move there, I can't live there because there's all these laws and rules. And I'm not even saying that I want to live there so much as I definitely like to spend some time there. But I just remember immediately being so caught up in the stories about why that couldn't happen because there's like laws in place and stuff like that. But then there's a deeper knowing in me that's like, yeah, but Reno, like, do you truly believe that when you want something and you decide and you move toward it, that, the whole universe will show up to make it happen for you? And so that I'm being challenged around that scenario right now. It's interesting because I keep getting this like I'm being moved in the direction of California. It's happening. I don't know when, but it's coming very soon. I can feel it. Yeah. Yeah. You want to say something?
I'm just gonna let.
Yeah. Okay. To be continued. I'm excited. I'm excited. I love it.
And I really just want to encourage you, and this is how otherworldly it gets when we let ourselves break through those layers of whatever you believe is real will become real for you. And so there's so many things that we have the capacity to override, overwrite, and transcend in this reality. So then another one of the practices becomes remembering that we are the source from moment to moment to moment, and what we decide is what is unfolding. And so staying in our knowingness of who and what we are is really valuable and really important. And having practices in place, and then that looks different for each of us. I mean, I know what mine are, but having those practices in place to help us exist from that place. And then in the moments that we don't, for me, I know that if I start to feel the energy of doubt coming in, or I start to get attached to the thing that I'm creating, I plant my feet on the earth and I take a deep breath. And I just go, okay, these are parts of you that are still shifting into alignment, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's
and that's the beautiful thing is that all these things that are coming up inside of me right now, right? It's like the book in California and the workshop and the retreat experience and all these things that are sort of coming up in me right now. There's no attachment to them. And so that's kind of fun. I'm just like, ooh, cool, that's there. This is exciting. Like I'm excited to like move with this. And the funny thing is like some of it doesn't make sense. Like I know my book is not going to be written here. I'm being moved somewhere else to write it, and it's coming. Like, and that's really exciting to me. But yeah, I'm just noticing like right now I'm definitely being called to like there's something going on simultaneously. It's really interesting. Creation of home, but also this guidance to like explore simultaneously. It's really interesting. Yeah. But one thing I wanted to say too is that I think one of the ways in which to really own these practices that put us in alignment, I think for those who don't know or understand like where to start or what theirs is, I think is to just like be curious. Like what are other, like I've just been in the practice of trying things that are put forth. So someone's like, oh, I have cold showers, I meditate, I go for nature walks, I use stones, I use crystals, et cetera, right? And so I'll try certain things and I'm like, that's not really for me, but this totally is, and then you sort of create this like beautiful recipe of spiritual practice that like works for you, and boom, there it is.
Spoken word has been such a this is why I do activations. I have no resistance there whatsoever. So having those mantras in place for myself where I can just ground into my essence, those have been some of the most powerful helpful tools that I have for myself, grounding back into my center and what I need to speak aloud to and for myself to come back into those alignments. And the rest of the practices are just energetic and self-care and, having fun. That's a huge one.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I start to feel myself going into a space that I don't necessarily want to inhabit, I go play. I go for a run. I dance, listen to music, sing, whatever it is, get into my body and just completely detach from the thing for a little while.
And most people, I think a lot of people will try to push through sometimes, and I guess there's a time and a place for that. But at the same time, I feel like that again to me is like of the old paradigm in a way. Again, there's a time and a place for it, but like one of the things I'm in practice of these days is like, yeah, just honoring like what does my spirit want, And some days it's like, for example, we'll use it in the context of exercise, right, and movement. So some days I'm like, I just want to dance and work up a sweat that way, just like through dancing and music. And other days I'm like, I feel like doing some push-ups and some squats and some of that. And I don't limit myself. I let my spirit guide me to the ways in which feel most aligned to practice self-care and fun and self-love. So I'm not going to sit at the computer and try to force something that's not coming through, because what's been so beautiful lately is that I know I'm attracted to being on Facebook Live and broadcasting, right? But I don't force it. So I've been consistently putting out content lately, and it's not because I have a schedule or anything. It's because when something inspires me and I can't help but share a message, I jump on Facebook Live and I put it out there. And to me, that just feels more genuine, more authentic, to sort of come from that inspired space than to like force it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't. I don't. I don't play in that playground at all. But what I do instead is everything in my power to cultivate a frequency of appreciation, so that I'm operating, living from that space, so that I can show up powerfully to the moment to allow that inspiration to flow through me. And if it's not there, then it's time for me to luxuriate and pamper myself.
Exactly. Yeah. And we think that's not productive, but my God, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, think about how amazing and inspired and attuned and like when we take care of ourselves, like it's amazing. How is that not productive?
It's one of the most essential things, because that's where the frequency comes from. I mean, if you're trying to push from an empty well, you're just going to push out. It's just and it's not going to bear the fruit that you want it to bear either. So the old way of doing business is completely, I mean, this is a whole different conversation, but we've got maximum on the monetary system anyways. So now is the time to own your skills as a co-creator. Now's the time to master that craft, because these are living technologies that are within us. They're going to help us to navigate changes that are happening at an accelerated pace in the external world, because of how quickly we're transforming and evolving internally. Those are the things to start tapping into. Our capacity as creators, our frequency, energy, how to work with those tools and inner technologies. And cultivating the frequency is more important than forcing something into the physical dimension. Any day of the week. There have been, because somehow I managed to formulate a belief around this, and so I'm thankful because it works. I've created a belief that when I go into spaces of rest and rejuvenation, I receive in abundance. And I do. I receive in quantity when I'm in those spaces, more so than, for me, like when I'm putting out and I'm expressing, it just, it feels fun. It feels enlivening. And I feel joy in doing that and in just sharing with other people. And there's always great gifts that come from that. But when I'm in those spaces, quantity comes in. I mean, way bigger than, So it's really, what I'm trying to say is it's just all formulated around our belief system. So if we believe that we can receive while we're pampering ourselves, because we assign meaning and value to every single thing that is happening inside of our creation, inside of our storyline. So if I go and put on my shoes and I say, me putting on my shoes means that I'm going to make $10,000 today, and I truly believe that in my being, and I have infused that meaning or that value into that act or that relation that I'm having, then that's what's going to manifest in my reality. So there's this whole part around belief reconfiguration too. So if you are existing in a reality where you believe that you need to enforce the 12-step thing to get,
you do.
Then that's exactly. Then
exactly.
You do.
And I'm just like, no, no thanks, not interested. Nope, not.
Yeah.
Not at all. Yeah, and it's amazing because like my reality has affirmed that. Like I didn't follow any 12. When I went to Bali the first time, when I went to Bali the second time, when I like any of the clients that I've enrolled, like any of the money, like I can reflect on all of the amazing opportunities that I have had in my life, and none of them came from following 12 steps. Right? They all came from me just being me out in the world and moving in alignment with whatever inspired me. That's it. Yeah. So
it's a that high degree of trust. High degree of trust.
Well, I need to put this into practice because I'm going to California.
Yeah, baby.
Y'all heard it here. You heard it here first. Yeah, I'm going to California. This is happening. And there's a book coming.
Ground it in and live in that space and feel yourself there. Breathe in the ocean air. Just start cultivating a vision of it. And what else is wanting to come through? There's something else. I don't know, but I'm actually just really enjoying like the pristine silence that was there.
Yeah, this has been amazing. And you know what? What I'm looking forward to, and I'm sure this resonates, the conversation that we are going to have and share about the changes that we continue to speak of that are happening in our world right now, the sort of paradigm shift that we're experiencing, because I think there are people that are aware of it, that are tuned into it, some that like they know, but they're like, I don't understand what's going on here. And then there are, of course, people that are completely sort of like unaware of it at this stage, right? So I'm really excited to have that conversation with you next time, and because I think there's so much there, and I know that when in the past when I've started to talk about things that I'm sort of plugged in and tuned into on a live platform, it's amazing where people are like, oh my God, that right. Like I feel this, I know this, I've been sensing that too. This is happening in my life too. And I'm like, of course it is.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember speaking to the monetary changes years ago because I was having the vision. Well, there's a couple of potential timelines just based on where the collective energy and agreement is moving currently at this time. So I can see if we accelerate what the timeline is, and if we just go at it from a balanced pace and we just completely take our time. But I remember speaking to it then and having, just people get upset about it, just get very upset. And I was like, it's happening because the energy, because I can see the energy, and the energy is shifting and changing and evolving. And the structures that we currently have will not support the structure of the energy itself, the shape, the expression, the movement of the energy, and that frequency is expanding. And so our structures have to expand with it. And it's nothing against the system. It's nothing against.
No,
it's just a natural
happening.
Yeah, it's just a
And
natural.
I had conversation, like I've been in rooms with like CEOs and like top level management, and
Mm-hmm,
I know that they understand it's happening, but I
mm-hmm.
also noticed some resistance to it.
For
And so
sure.
it's been really beautiful to have those conversations with them. And if I'm being totally honest, I also recognize that like there is an aspect of myself that's kind of like, oh, thank God, like
Mm-hmm.
I've been on this for like years now. You know what I mean? And it's kind of exciting to be um, there's a word that was used once upon a time and I can't remember what it was, but like sort of an usher, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea that I get to facilitate people progressing into this like new paradigm. Like I get to be
Mm-hmm.
a part of that, and I also get to sort of gently and gracefully sort of facilitate people like into it as well. It's like it's
Mm-hmm.
okay, you know. Yeah, this might seem scary, and you might not get it, and it's kind of uncomfortable. But like you're good, I promise. I got you. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
exhilarating when you're grounded into your creatorship
Mhm.
because you can materialize whatever it is that you
Mhm.
need to materialize when you
Yeah.
want and need to materialize it, whether it's money or some cryptocurrency or a
Mhm.
house on the ocean or whatever it is
Mhm.
that you're wanting to.
I definitely want that last one. That house on the ocean. I'll have that. I'll have
Uh-huh, yeah.
that. Yeah.
Oof, yeah.
Uh,
Hmm. The but there's so much beauty in that because even in the evolution of us shifting to a decentralized currency
mhm.
is that we no longer need money to learn about self-love and sovereign independence. We
Mhm.
can start to shift beyond that into new ways of being and expressing and creating and experiencing life. And so I think the evolution of it is beautiful. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know. I like change too, though. I like adapting to new things, and I think for some people, it's what's familiar. It's what they've identified themselves with their sense and source of value.
Mhm.
Their worth is tied to the inner worth is tied to the outer worth, and so it feels a little bit scary and destabilizing
Absolutely. Yeah.
to but when the worth is built on
And
true
mhm.
self knowing,
Game changer.
yeah, because nothing in the world can take that away and nothing
Yeah.
can uh, alter
And
that. It's in you.
that sovereignty, that is enlightenment. That is yeah. That's
Mhm.
freedom. That's
You wherever you go, there you are, and how empowering. And that, yeah, I
mhm.
mean, a true leader will empower you to that space within
Mhm.
yourself. Because if you have to
Mhm.
rely on this thing out here, this thing out here, those are all beautiful tools and things that we get to experience and create. And there are even aspects and dimensions of our own beingness and consciousness that we get to play with. But
Mhm.
there's nothing like knowing that your most powerful asset is who and what you are, and
Mhm.
owning those skills and
Mhm.
mastering your craft and carrying that within you and being a channel of that wherever you go, knowing how to create your reality and your experience from the
That is
inside out.
leading by example right there. Yeah.
Oof.
Mhm.
Everybody has that. That's like the man, there's been, and that's how I was initiated into my magic, is because I was in certain situations backed into corners, or I backed myself into corners where I had to learn how to harness those inner technologies. And that is all that I had to rely on, create from, trust in.
Mhm.
And so I learned how to master those parts of my own self
Mhm.
through those types of situations.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
devoted to helping other people find that within themselves, because that's the most, I mean, that's it. You are the key.
Ditto. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so amazing, and I'm
Oh,
looking forward to, yeah, the next one. Definitely. I mean, we've already sort of touched on it here, but there's definitely a lot of depth and width and breadth we can go into. But
oh
yeah,
yeah.
this has been so useful. Like, I feel like there's so much from
Mm.
this conversation that even like I'm gonna take away and use moving forward. I feel like yes, I'm ready to like to rock this. So yeah, thank you.
Yes. Believe in yourself. Write
Oh
that.
yeah.
Empower. I'm going to empower your vision.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I see you. We're gonna. Yeah, I know I'm running into you too. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love you
Awesome.
so much,
I
Reno.
love you too.
I hope you have a beautiful time on your call,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, we'll connect soon.
Sounds good. Love you.
Okay, love you too.
Bye, Solara. Mwah.